Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to our program today, where we'll discuss 3 steps to lifting yourself up. Lessons from the Golden Monk series. And we have our speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. Vaish is currently traveling, but he's kind enough that he still could carve out some time for us to come and uplift us. So thank you so much, Vaish, for giving us this opportunity, and welcome back to Success Sadhana.
Thank you so much, Jai Madhava. It's such a pleasure to be back here. I mean, I'm conditioned when I hear that music, I just get joyful all of a sudden. We've had so many good experiences here on the Success Sadhana program, meeting with everybody. I think it goes to a part of my brain that makes me instantly happy. Great to see you. Great to see you, Aditi. Great to see you, Vicky. Thanks for joining, everybody. Sunit, Anya, Pen, Mayank is here. Subbu, Deva Prashana, Samulup. Boy, I'm having hard names today. So it's a great. Vicky already said I heard the same music on a customer call earlier this week in my mood. Well, that goes to Pavlov then. He talked about some kind of response, conditioned response. Ours is all good though. Well, today I like the topic because it's very practical. It's 3 steps to lifting yourself up. And we do have something to do with it. That's why the ancient wisdom literatures prescribe a discipline, a practice. Actually, the word discipline comes from Latin, from a word which means learner. And discipline leads to, when it's properly positioned and when it has the right goal, leads to freedom, as we talked about last week, and also about leads to natural sense of happiness, knowledge, and so forth. Everyone has some sense of getting their life together somehow. It may be difficult though. And there are hundreds, if not thousands and millions of disciplines that people can follow. So I'll be talking today in simple terms about the process of disciplines. Really what it means, 3 steps, is a way that Chaitanya, who taught Bhakti Yoga 550 years ago, described how there's 3 main steps. Understanding your relationship. And that means, who am I? What's this universe? Why am I here in the first place? And then there's abhideya, which means a practice. My spiritual master used to say, to make progress in life, you have to have at least two things. One is knowledge and the other is practice. So the abhideya, fancy Sanskrit word, it means the practice that you take up to attain your goal. If you know you're on track, isn't it uplifting? Even when you're not close to the goal, if you know you're on the right path, if you can understand, I'm doing the right things. And even though I'm not that good at it yet, I know that I'm going the right direction. I'm not lost. I'm not doing things uselessly. I'm not wasting my time. That feels good. And then prayojana, he said, the third part, which is reaching the goal. And a caveat about reaching the goal. In the practice of self-realization, bhakti yoga, connecting with the Supreme, the goal is unlimited. I like a metaphor I learned in a book called the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which the author, after finishing writing this epic book, said, birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky's unlimited. So no matter what height one reaches in self-realization, there's always more to go because we're dealing with a subject matter that's unlimited. It's the nature of self-realization and understanding the source of ourself. This is what ananda means. Bliss means there's unlimited features to the ultimate goal. So the three stages, in a very practical way, are a kind of guideline. So the very complicated ways in which we're involved with the world and we're not sure which way to go, which things to take up, which things to drop, we can at least define our path to self-actualization by defining these three aspects. One is, who am I? What's my relationship with this world? And what's my relationship with my ultimate goal? And then abhideya, what's the practice to get there? You can start small. It doesn't matter how small you start. Do it you can with what you have. And then there is the goal. And there is a way in which there are guideposts along the way. These ancient wisdom literatures, it's like when I've driven from, say, San Francisco to Los Angeles, I could tell how far along I am by looking at the road signs. Of course, there's GPS now too. And there are many signs that tell you there's a rough road coming, or you're going to go up hills for a little while, and slippery road, etc. So there's guideposts along the way. And when we do come to the threshold of self-actualization, there really are symptoms. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes how it feels to be spiritually oriented rather than being oriented towards our material body. And he gives the following symptoms, just as an example. I'm just proving that within this genre, there is a sense of achievement when you know that you're touching the web of the divine. So first he says that there's a sense of happiness, natural happiness. You feel joyful. If you've ever felt joyful, just blissful, you'll notice how nicely things go for you in your life, even if you're facing dire problems. If you're blissful, you can deal with them handily. And relationships go better when you're blissful. They definitely don't go better when you're grouchy, do they? Anybody who has a significant other can vouch for that. Grouchy. I'm not grouchy. So if you're blissful, if you're happy, if you're actually feeling nourished within and you're dealing with other people, people will notice it also, that you're flexible. Happiness is there's a very high premium on it. People trivialize it by saying you can get it from a can of soda or from smoking a cigarette. But the ancient wisdom literatures categorically deny that this is real pleasure, real ananda, real happiness. You have to dig for it a little bit. In fact, there's a metaphor about that There's a treasure there we have within us, just like it's in our backyard. We just didn't know it was there. And then someone says, no, the treasure's back there. I'll show you how to dig, where to dig, and so forth. That's what the practice is. And the first symptom, it's called prasanna atma. Atma means the self, and prasanna means you're happy. You're just happy in yourself. You don't need anything else. It's not like you're dependent on something else to be happy. You're naturally feeling happy. And then the sochadina kankshati, the other symptom, is that you're not hankering for anything. You don't need anything else. Have you ever felt that? So I don't want anything. I'm perfectly happy where I am right now. I feel fulfilled. And you're also not lamenting. Oh, I did it wrong. Oh, I don't have what I wanted. I went the wrong way in life. All that disappears like vapor. In fact, that's one of the descriptions in the ancient wisdom literatures. It says, Angam dun vandit kartsnena nihara iva bhaskara. Bhaskara means the sun. And there's a way that says when we're involved in our false ego, it's like we're covered by fog. And when the sunshine comes out, it burns off the fog. So the practice of spiritual life means to come in contact with the sun, which is our original source with many, many names. And then the fog burns off and we realize, oh, okay, I know where I'm going and I have enough. I feel happy. Sochiti, kankshiti, I'm not lamenting for anything. I'm not hankering for anything more. I just want more service. You can hanker for that. That's spiritual. And then the third one is that you have an intimate relationship with everything in the universe. You don't see mine and somebody else's. You see everything belongs to the same original source. You don't claim anything to be yours, even though you use many things in service. And this is a sense of universality. There's no more sense of protecting your what's yours, although there are practical matters too. That doesn't mean you don't lock your door if you need to, or if somebody encroaches on your property, you don't do due diligence. But I'm talking about a universal sense that whatever I have, actually, it's just temporarily in my possession. So there are various symptoms like signposts mentioned. And finally, the final point as a preamble to this is the ancient wisdom literatures say you are an agent. You are an agent. And that means because you're an agent, you can do things that will improve yourself. We know that, right? We know that from our actual practical experience in life. But what about spiritual advancement? Can we do anything? Yes. They say yes. You can improve yourself. There's a practice for that. And there's a way you can get a knowledge base that will keep you oriented in such a way that you can make advancement. And what's the fruit of that? We do so many disciplines, don't we, in order to get a fruit? You go to school, you get a diploma. Why? So you can get perhaps a good employment. That sounds really mundane, but that's what we do. We math it up and say, if I could just become what? A milkman, a milk person, or an engineer, or whatever it might be, then I'm calculating, what's in it for me. So we should know that there's an ultimate spiritual goal in life, and it can go on, it has to go on concurrently with whatever we're doing now in our life, because we do have to maintain our bodies and minds together. Okay, with all that, we talk about 3 steps that we are knowing that we're agents, we can do something for ourselves, and that there's 3 stages that the golden monk, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, taught. Get the knowledge, figure out where you are, figure out where you need to go, then find out what the practice is, and then be aware of what the goal is and step into it. Make that your preoccupation in life, even as you're balancing the other parts of your life. And it becomes easier when you're happy. Okay. JM, may I sally forth?
Sure.
Okay. First order of business, I'm going to tell you a story about the person who put their deposits in the wrong bank account. And he doesn't look all too happy to me because he just figured out after many years of depositing his money, he put it in somebody else's bank account. And when he went to withdraw, he literally looks pretty freaked out, doesn't he? So there's an ancient story that talks about how we have two aspects to our life. We're matter and we're spirit. We're not actually matter, but we're encased in it. We're spiritual beings. We're taking a little ride in the material body. And I might invest everything. We have to invest enough in the body and mind to keep it together, as I said. But if I think exclusively on my body, I keep putting all my energy into the idea that I belong to this world, this life's going to go on forever, which is folly, that I'm putting an investment in an account. But when it comes time to withdraw from the account when I really need it, for instance, a lot of times people, when they realize we have to move on, we can't stay in this world, whatever it is we've done, that's what carries me to my next destination. And then there's nothing in the account because I put it in the wrong account. So there's a directive in these ancient wisdom literatures, which is expressed in the next slide, which is know thyself. Socrates said that. Great philosophers start with a baseline. Find out who you are, really, before you invest everything in an imaginary self. In fact, the body we have right now, sometimes described as an imaginary self. Like sometimes people forget who they are. There are mental conditions where somebody thinks they're somebody they're not. I've seen it before because I used to visit someone, a place where people had Alzheimer's and everybody had a kind of identity there. And the nurses would tell me this person is acting as if he or she is this, somebody else has another identity. So the ancient wisdom literatures say the identity we're masquerading with right now and the life situation we're involved with right now, it's not our real life. It's just an extension of the material nature. So that's why Socrates and others said, know thyself. Who are you really? And examine your life. What's the difference between your life situation and you? Even that sort of a contemplation is very helpful because we're the one watching our life situation. And when we get wrapped up in it and think, this is me, then I'm carried away by that. But we can step back as we have before as witnesses and doing meditation and so forth and notice it's all going on. But I'm safe within the eye of the storm. So the golden monk, Chaitanya, also gave this metaphor that we're like logs. In the material world, we keep floating. This is called samsara. Samsara means we flow from one situation, not just in this life to another, but also when we leave this lifetime, we go into another situation and it never stops. And that way we're floating in the same river called the material world, samsara. Samsara means we change from one situation to the next. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, okay, you were once in the womb, then you became a little tiny child, then you were a youth, then you were middle-aged, you were old-aged. What happens when you leave this body? Well, the ancient wisdom and literature say you're not finished, just the body's finished. It's only, you're driving your car and it wears out. That's possible, right? Yeah. And then you get a new car. You've moved on to the next one. Question is, which kind can you afford in the next life? So the golden monk Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, we are like logs, we're endlessly floating. And then he gives this clarion call. He said, it's time to come to the shore. Get off this floating lifestyle, just being carried by the current from one place to the next. Don't be forced to take another material body. Rise to the next level, which is to come back to your original spiritual consciousness. So Sambandha means, who am I? And asking this question is so valuable. Whoever stops to ask that question and deeply consider it, every part of my material personality can change. I can change my pronouns. I can change my citizenship. You could go to Canada and apply for citizenship there. You think they give it to you, Jan? They would, maybe, right? You say, I want to be a Canadian, eh? And they might hand it over to you and just fill out some paperwork. And you were identified as American, then you can become Canadian, and then you can go to Syria and become a Syrian. And so these designations, these are the bank account I might be putting money in. But the great philosophers of yore and the ancient wisdom literatures are all in sync that this is the starting place. Find out who you are. Ask the question, who am I? Go deeply within that. Because you're not your hair, you're not your eyelashes, you're not your fingernails, right? So how deep does it go? Are you the bones in your body? Are you the water that flows through your body as blood and so forth? These are all superficial. They're all mechanical, but your consciousness, you're the conscious being within. So when we have this sense of sambandha, the first stage of lifting ourselves up, get a baseline, figure out first who you are, stop throwing your assets away into just one bank account that you're not going to be able to rely on. Connect. That's the next point. You can make a connection. And that sambandha means when we consider that we're not just a material body, we're conscious, which means that we're amazing. Consciousness is amazing. It's the next frontier. So much of the scientific world now is going into cognitive research and discovering that it is an unsolved mystery. You can't use mathematics to describe consciousness. You can't use controlled experiments to describe consciousness because it's amazing. It's beyond the measurability that we normally use. So it's a great frontier. And we're connected with that. That's actually our ultimate connection, not just this body that we're riding in now that's going to get old and we're going to have to give it up and go on to the next one. We've always existed. We always will exist. That's a pretty exciting prospect. And the consciousness is never diminished, and it's also individual. So the Golden Monk then talked about connection, and here in the slide gives these directives. You are a particle of consciousness. Say you're a person. You're part of the complete whole. So this is your sambandha, your actual relationship. And you have a loving relationship with the complete whole. In the same breath, I'll also say, although I did take another breath, that we have a non-relationship with the material world. One of my favorite directives given in the ancient wisdom literature says, asango hyayam purushaha. Sangha means to be connected to something. And asanga means you have no connection at all. And he means certainly, definitely. And purusha means you. We're talking to you. You're a person. That's why when I say you look at, who, me? Yeah, you have a sense of me. When that sense of me is connected just to the body, it's called ahankar, false ego. You're not just a body, you're the consciousness within. And so when we have this understanding that I'm an individual particle of consciousness. I have a relationship with the Supreme Whole. We can also understand asanga. We don't have a real relationship with the material world. It's ethereal. We're only passing through this world. And you don't get to keep anything. Has anybody ever mentioned that? When you leave this world, you can't keep anything? Let's see, raise your hand if anybody's ever told you that. Let's say recently. Vicky, they told you that you can't keep anything when you leave. Have you ever been with anybody when they left their body and noticed that they left everything behind and everyone has to figure out what to do with all their stuff? Yeah, I have with my parents. Every just had took months to figure out what. I mean, they said this can go here, that can go there, but I was by my mother's side when she left the world, and as soon as I could tell she was no longer in her body, consciousness had left the body. You can tell that when you're with somebody. And I looked around. It was at her house in her room. She had been preparing for it. And then one of the thoughts that came into my mind was, you left everything. She had lots of books and lots of art. She collected art and books. And I was thinking, you left it all behind. It's all here. And that's what happens to all of us. We don't really get to keep anything. And I might think I'm from Mississippi, or someone might think I'm from Coimbatore, or somebody else says I'm from Italy. But all these things are temporary designations. Once the consciousness leaves the body that was born in Italy or Coimbatore or Mississippi, then we have no more identity with that. So our real identity is called Sanatana Dharma, that identity that survives, that goes past the body. And in fact, in the verb is, also conjugated as are or was, there is a sense etymologically of that which remains. That which remains is real. And that which diminishes and changes and morphs into something else, that's not real. It's illusory. It's constantly morphing. But there is a real world. There is a real us. That's one of the main points of sambandha. So sambandha means I have a relationship that's much better, much higher. And also the material world, don't feel bad. It's a fake out. It's kind of a reflection of reality. And it seemed like a good idea, but it doesn't really work out. So you don't have to freak out about it, but it just means that we treat the way we relate with the material world in a different way. We understand that everything I have here is meant to be honored, respected on a different level. But I don't claim that this is mine forever. It's always changing and moving on. So that brings us to prayojan. Prayojan is the third, which is after first I mentioned sambandha, what's my relationship with my original source, and also the non-relationship I have with the material world. Then there's abhideya, which means there's a practice. And sort of anachronistically, I'm going to mention the abhideya or the practice last, because it just works for this presentation, because I want to leave all of us with a sense of here's what to do next. So the slide I'm on now says prayojana, what's my goal? Prayojana is, you see that person is kind of looking like, where am I going? What am I going for? What's my ultimate goal in life? And that's important to know. That's the prayojan. There's a very, very old Sanskrit saying, Om Tad Vrishno Paramam Padam Sada Pashanti Surya, which means that although you're walking in this world, make sure your eyes are pointed upwards towards your ultimate goal. Don't forget that. And then we come to a sense of which metaphor guides us in this world. I read a book about metaphor. It was so powerfully written. It was all about how much metaphors change the world and guide us in our lives. Sometimes people say life is a race. Have you ever heard that? What kind of race do people usually say the world is? Put it in the chat box. 3 letters. And the word ends with a T, it starts with an R. Right? Vicky wins. What kind of metaphor is that? What is your life? It's a rat race. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a rat race, but I can imagine one in my mind. And it seems a little, when I think of it, a little frenetic and just running for something. And I guess the idea behind a rat race is I'm just running for some nourishment somewhere, trying to get a little peanut butter cookie at the end of a maze somewhere, the rat race. And a race in general doesn't have to be for rats, but just I'm trying to win something here, trying to get ahead of everybody else. Have you ever had that feeling in school or in your family or somewhere else? I'm just running a race. I'm trying to beat everybody else. Yeah? Okay. So then what's another metaphor we have here? Life's a battle. We're fighting against something. Well, here's the metaphor in the next slide that the Golden Monk gave. It's really sweet, actually. If you do any gardening, you can relate to this more. But anybody can relate to this. Your life is a garden. Become an expert gardener. Nice metaphor. Think of growing something in your life. And think also that so much of what you do in gardening is already provided. The soil's there, the light's there, the water's there. It's available. And then the seed is a miracle. So the Golden Monk talked about how if you want to be on this path of self-realization and you want to break free from samsara and this sense of dread of just being in the material world and being forced to move on into one situation after another beyond your control, is that find the right seeds. Seeds are very specific. If you plant a particular seed like a cucumber, you're going to get cucumbers for sure. And if you plant watermelon, you're going to get watermelon. So one of the mysteries of the universe, in fact, it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, is seeds. I love seeds. They're so interesting. Have you ever taken time to look at one? Homework. Here's your homework. Get some kind of seed and put it in your hand and just meditate on it and think, what's in there? A DNA code. It's a little algorithm. You put it in the soil. What is soil anyway? Have you ever thought of that? And then sunshine. Have you ever thought what sunshine is lately? It just gets in your eyes when you're driving, or is it some powerful energy that's coming from a source we can't travel to? We can't even barely understand what it is or where it came from and why is it burning like it's burning. And then water. I'm just going to try it right now. That's the real stuff. Makes everything come alive. You got water, you got air, all these natural elements, they're all there. But the seed, you enter it into a place and you take care of it, guard it. This is the metaphor that Chaitanya, the Golden Monk, said, let this guide your life. Be a gardener. And when you get the right seed, and that comes from, as he said, the Golden Monk talked about, if you find somebody who's already in the process of self-realization and has a perspective that is very helpful to you, very optimistic, person is grateful, and so forth, we become a product of our associations in life. So the Golden Monk said, find somebody who's already turning, who's already helping themselves and they know how to do it, and get that kind of seed, that kind of lifestyle, that kind of attitude from that person, and then plant it in your own garden and start watering it. I'll go more into the metaphor in a minute. So that's the next slide. It gives this word avideya. Avideya means practice. I like this so much because what's the use of being a human being if you don't have yourself aligned in practice? Doesn't it feel so good when you've researched it well and you know what's the right practice? Like, just say diet. You take the time to figure out what's the best kind of diet, right? And then you just follow it. And you'll notice that your life changes because your diet changed. Or exercise. You figure out what's the best thing you can do for your body and you exercise. And you know when you're practicing, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to take care of my physical body and my mental body. Same thing, they're connected. And when we have that practice, it's called abhideya. And so there's a spiritual side too. There is a spiritual practice. You can do it at home. You can do it under a tree. You can do it when you go on vacation. You can do it when you go to work. You can do it always. And so the golden monk said, abhideya, get your own spiritual practice. Don't just be in awe of other people's practices or critical of it. Find your own practice. Become a good gardener. Find the right seeds. And then invest in it. Invest in yourself and put it in the right bank account. Oops, I just changed metaphors. So point is, with abhideya, there is a practice that you can, it's something you can actually do. You have senses, and you can engage those senses practically in a way that you're going to make advancement. And even if you don't see the seed sprout yet out of the ground, if you know you got it from the best possible supplier, and you know you put it in the best possible soil, and you know there's enough sunlight, everything's there, you're very confident it's going to sprout. And when it does sprout, it changes. In fact, it's a metaphor. One of the great teachers of Bhakti, who was a student of the Golden Monk, his name was Rupa Goswami. And he also talked about how when you start doing your own practice for Bhakti Yoga, which I'll talk about in a minute, how to do it, he said there's a little sprout that comes up. And if you've ever looked at a sprout, it has two big leaves. Those are the first ones that come out on a sprout. One has a rough side and the other one has a very smooth side. And he gives this extended metaphor about how when we start practicing, in the very, very beginning, the sprout comes up, and he said, there's several symptoms. One is you start to feel happy. You feel pleasure. He said your life becomes auspicious, and the definition he gave of auspiciousness is you know how to do good for others and you feel inclined to do good for others. And the other one is you become free from the feeling of dread that can be there because we have so much debt in the world. We're paying off karma. So that starts to diminish. And he gives these symptoms and relates it to the sprouts. So that's what happens when we start practicing. Sprout comes up. So before I go to 3 Bhakti Yoga practices that will instantly lift you up, I'll take a couple of reflections.
Yeah, please.
Payback time.
Yeah.
You gotta talk to me here. I'm here. I'm a mile high in Denver. I can see the mountains from here, and I'm feeling separation. So I need a little human contact. You gotta tell me something. Tell me something you heard so far that stuck with you.
Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself and share your questions, reflections, or you can type in the chat box. And I also want to take this opportunity. Quite a few members have joined in new today. So welcome everyone. Please feel free to introduce yourself or ask your questions or reflections either through chat or unmuting yourself. And we have Vicky here. Vicky, please go ahead.
Thank you. I really like what was said about how an airplane only stays on its flight path 30% of the time, but it will still get from San Francisco to New York, for example. And it made me compare how the log is floating aimlessly, whereas the airplane has a goal, though it doesn't, it still is not perfectly always in balance. It will still wobble back and forth, but in releasing our fear of not having control, we have more control over something that would add a positive aspect to our life. So it also reminded me of what was said previously about if you don't if you don't like what you're being subjected to, then change the subject. And I also wanted to introduce my friend David. He wanted to discuss more about meditation and learn more about it. So I was hoping that we could discuss that today. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome, David. Thank you, Vicky, for the insights. It reminded me of what the sages told us, and I recounted to you about agency. It's an important point because it's easy enough to become fatalistic and think, well, things just happen by chance, or I'm just being carried along. I can't do anything about being in the floating condition. But these ancient wisdom literatures say, no, you can. Hi, David. Good to see you.
I just posted this is Divya. I posted a quick picture, but I grow everything in mine and my brother's garden from seed every year. And it just takes me through the full cycle and humbles me, in a sense, to detach. And yet it's so difficult as we navigate life. So just wanted to, as you are reflecting, I wanted to also provide a pictorial representation of, what growing from seed looks like, how beautiful it evolves. And I'm also going to put a file with a sprout so everyone can take a look.
I opened the flower. What kind of flower is that?
It's a Senorita Xenia.
Oh, it's a zinnia.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks for giving us visual remembrances of the process of planting seeds and how beautiful it can be. It's really nice.
And interestingly enough, like the cycle of life, you plant one petal and that whole plant comes off. So you plant a
Is that right? Amazing.
Yes.
Miracles abound. Oh, there's David. Hi, David. I saw you were unmuted for a second. So
Hi,
it's
hi. It's great to be here. This was amazingly useful. I'm trying to learn more on meditation, doing some yoga, listening to Sadhguru, but I'm very excited that Vicky invited me here. It's great to be here and learning here. So I live in Menlo Park, so this was extremely useful.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will go into the Bhakti Yoga meditation in just a minute, since that's a specific topic you brought up. I'll be very honored to talk a little bit about that.
Fantastic.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Anyone else? Any thoughts, reflections, comments? Anything that you heard that stuck in your mind or will share with others?
Yeah, I thought that the analogy of the garden and thinking of yourself as a beautiful garden that you need to nourish was really interesting because it also helps understand that what you need is not what maybe someone else may need. Like if you're a sunflower, maybe maybe you're supposed to bloom as a sunflower, and what a sunflower needs is more sun, versus when we sometimes tend to compare ourselves with others. It's everybody's needs are different because every seed is different and everybody blossoms a different way. So I thought that was very interesting, to help understand many other, intricate details of how we see ourselves and how we see others in the world.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I'm sure Divya can say a lot more about that, because different kinds of flowers and plants need different environments. Some of them like sandy soil, some of them like very rich black soil. Others grow easily without water, like the succulents have a cell inside them where they're able to preserve the water. It doesn't evaporate very quickly, and so on. And there's another part of the metaphor, which in gardening is very apt. And one of my favorite sayings is, the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. Meaning that when you're getting attention from somebody who knows how to garden, that is, if you're a plant, then you're likely to do much better. And there's a strong suggestion given in the ancient wisdom literatures that find a good gardener for your life. I have two gardeners. I have a garden in my front and backyard. I travel so much when I get home, I really like to have time in the garden and to get restored. It's a place I repair to regularly. And I just notice when I bring the gardeners there, they really have intimate knowledge of the plants. Some of them they'll say, well, this one's finished. It's been here 20 years, so say goodbye. Other ones, they say, oh, this would do well here, and this one you could move over there, and so forth. So having somebody in your life to give you guidance for growing your own plants and so forth can be very helpful. Thank you for that. And also not comparing yourself to others, because you have different needs, interests, concerns according to your biophysiological nature. In any case, you may have to work at a different pace. Look, Mayank wrote something, JM. Why don't you read it?
Yeah. Mayank says, I like the slide about who am I. Sometimes, even though being in an abominable condition, the living entity might not be aware of it and just be falsely thinking himself to be very happy. Examples of a stool eater is given in this context.
Yeah, animals eat. I was just in London, and there's this little pathway from the house where I was staying. Every morning I go for a walk for a few miles, and I go through this little verdant area, lots of plants, a lot of animals. I saw foxes back there. And one day, and I don't want to gross anybody out, but I saw a dead rat. It was right in the middle of the pathway. And by the next day, there was only rib cage and a few other things. Apparently, it was a light snack for somebody. And I was just thinking, God, I walk as far around it as possible. I wouldn't want to eat it, but somebody else is eating it. This is one of the points. We get conditioned to various ways of living in this world, and we think, oh, this is great. But when we rise to higher consciousness, we may have a different perspective of what real happiness is. Nice point, Mayank. Thanks for offering that. Okay, now I'm going to go a little bit into meditation. This David brought it up, and it matches with the next slide, because now we're going into abhideya, which means the practice. What can you do as a home practice? What kind of meditations are there? First, the word med is also in medicine, right? Medicine has the root word med. I'm just looking it up again. And it has to do with taking remedial measures. If something's off, you have to do something to balance it out. That's much of what natural medicine's about. You find that you have a deficiency somewhere, so you balance it somehow. And meditation, there's a way in which we're dealing with the ailments of the mind. The mind has a tendency to become disturbed. It's very subtle and can become disturbed. What's more, the mind absorbs everything from the environment. It's a clearinghouse for all the senses. Senses are bringing in information all the time. And according to our lifestyle and association, we're bringing in certain kinds of images and information and sounds. So a remedial measure is needed to come back to the mind's original condition, which is like a clear surface of a mirror. This is an example that the Golden Monk gave. He said, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Darpana means a mirror, and Marjanam means to clean. And Cheta means the mind. So the mind needs to be cleansed. So there are three ways that the Golden Monk told us in his teachings, which are in concurrence with the ancient wisdom literatures. It's called Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. And that's translated here on this slide: to hear, chant, remember. So in meditation, the mind is brought to a single point. And when we're focusing our mind on a single point, what is that point? Where are we placing the mind? The mind has unlimited places to go. And also there's a lot of chatter at a certain level of mind that tends to distract us and pull us away. So the golden monk said, there's a particular kind of meditation that goes back tens of thousands of years. It's been practiced by great sages in mountain caves, and even in modern times by people who live in cities and so forth. It's called mantra meditation. So man literally means mind. Manas means mind in Sanskrit. And tra comes from a word that means to deliver. The mind can be delivered, it can be cured, it can be brought to a state of clarity again, said the golden monk, especially through sound vibration. And he recommended the mantras are a specific formula. Formulas are, it's an interesting concept also. Like nobody knows what's in Coca-Cola, right? It's supposed to be a secret. I don't know how it tastes so much because it's not something I drink, but it's a formula. And then there are cleaning formulas also. And some of them are proprietary, so you don't know what's in it, but it just works. And some of them you get from your mom or from something that's been passed down, or maybe from YouTube. So you mix a little baking soda or baking soda and this and that. I'm just making stuff up, but you know, there is a formula for cleaning or for fixing things. Formula. It's a little of this, a little of that, it's mixed together. So in a mantra, you have what's called a sound formula. We can understand this also from the digital age. When you look at certain combinations of letters and symbols, you get a computer language, right? Someone may say, oh, that's nothing. Like I heard, in fact, my wife told me that we flew out of San Francisco to Denver yesterday. And as soon as we landed in Denver, the whole computer system, anybody hear about this? It went haywire and all the flights were canceled. Thousands of flights were canceled in United. We just somehow made it under the wire. But what was it? There was some code somewhere, an algorithm written out, and it had a little glitch in it. So something malfunctioned. I hope it gets better. It is better already. So giving those as examples, the ancient wisdom literature say there are sound combinations called mantras that are specifically meant to cleanse the mind and bring us to the vision of not just ourself, but also the source of ourself. And that's what yoga means. Yoga means, and meditation, the perfection of meditation is to see our connection with our original source. Just like there's the sun and then there's the sunshine. We're one with the sun, but we're different at the same time. And when we have this experience of being connected with our original source, which is unlimited, it has sat, eternality, chit, cognition, and ananda, complete happiness and bliss. When we're able to connect there rather than with the raging mind, we feel this sense of, wow, I am something. I'm part of the whole, and I'm connected to this higher energy. The material world, and including the mind, which is very subtle, but it's material. If we focus on it, we think that I am my mind, or I am my thoughts, I am my lifestyle, or I am my body. Then I'm dragged into this sense of fear, that what's going to happen to me and so forth. When we come to the spiritual level, said the golden monk, you glimpse it, there's no more fear, because I always exist, I always will exist, and anyone can experience this, he said. And he highly recommended this ancient process of mantra, deliver the mind through sound. And that's also in one of the oldest known teachings on yoga. It goes back tens of thousands of years. And it says, anavriti shabda. Shabda means sound vibration, and anavriti means to become uncovered. Uncover your mind and see your real self by sound vibration. So the three processes you can enact to uplift yourself. First one is hear the sound and chant the sound. They kind of go together, don't they? Because if you do it yourself, you chant the mantra, you listen to the sound. And this morning here in Denver, actually, I held a circle, a mantra circle, where people sat in a circle, and I introduced the concept of mantra meditation, and we sat and chanted. And as the sun's coming up, when you're able to do that kind of meditation, you can have this sense of connectivity with the universe and what's going on. You get a much higher perspective, and you can also get a little peek into this sense of complete satisfaction. I'm not saying it happens every single time, but you have to practice for some time. And then the mind starts to get cleansed, and it becomes more part of who you are and how you live in the world. So the three processes, again, the three bhakti yoga practices that will instantly lift you up, even if you don't have a complete realization of your higher self, you'll feel improved. I guarantee you, if you chant the mantra and listen to it. So those are the first two, hearing, chanting. And there's also the ancient wisdom literatures themselves. For instance, Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, 5,000-year-old literature, it's very specifically, universally about spiritual knowledge. It says that if you listen to this dialogue, and it's a dialogue between two personalities, then it will fortify your intelligence, and you'll be able to see the world categorically in a different way, in a spiritual way. So hearing also means hearing from wisdom literatures. It also means chanting the mantra, and then hearing. What is hearing? It means attentive hearing. When you chant the mantra, don't be thinking of the emails you have to send. This is the heavy lifting of the meditation and mantra. When you chant the mantra and you repeat it, keep bringing your mind back to the awareness that I'm chanting now, I'm listening to the mantra. And as you do that, the mantra will sound interesting. This is a sign of that you're making progress. Like, what is in this mantra? It sounds different from the other sounds I'm hearing. And the mantra becomes then mysterious. And then the mantra starts to cleanse. It already is cleansing, but we start to notice that it's doing so. And oftentimes you feel the real effect of your chanting after you stop. And then you feel that you can control your senses more than you did before. This is one of the gifts of the mantra. For instance, have you ever been in a situation where you were annoyed with somebody? Has anybody ever been annoyed with somebody? Please say yes, or I'll feel really bad.
Yes.
Because, yeah, okay, thanks. So mantra chanting has this way of lifting you above that energy of being annoyed with people. I mean, what's good for anyway, getting annoyed with people? Like, I don't like the way you talk, or the way you chew, or the way you walk, or whatever it is. You're just like, you become transcendental. What to speak of the problems you're working on in your life, where you keep grinding your brains. How am I going to present this to the person so they don't become angry with me, but I still have to tell them, but I don't want to tell them. And it's, But you chant the mantra and you feel a little transcendental. And then you're able to move in the world in a better way. And decisions become more fluid and so forth. I'm just saying, you'll notice even the very tertiary improvements that you're getting by chanting the mantra. Your life feels better. And then there's deeper and deeper, ever deepening levels coming from mantra meditation. So then remembering becomes natural. You start to remember your experiences, the way you've touched a sense of your eternality. It becomes part of your remembrance system. And that's what gives you the perspective in your life. I'm running out of time. So in this last two slides, here's some tips. First one is get into a routine. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Don't do it once and walk away and say, I tried it once. But get a routine. How many mantras should you chant? Something more than 0, not less than 1. And do it every day. Consistency is king. Next, make at least 3 improvements every month in your life. Make a list. Where do you want to improve? And the third tip is get a good start each day. That's the best thing in a race. If you get a good start, you're on a good track. You can still win if you don't, but Start your day spiritually. Have something in place so you don't just get swept away by technology or something like that. Be strong and get yourself on a spiritual track. Here's your homework. Set some goals for your spiritual practice. Something about hearing and chanting that you can do at your home or wherever you are. Create a space and make a goal for how you're going to do your hearing, chanting, and remembering. If you do those three things as your Abhideya every day, you start early in the morning and you try to hit your goals, I guarantee you, you're going to feel self-determining and you're going to start to see the mysterious power of these three processes that the Golden Monk recommended. They're highly recommended in all the ancient wisdom literatures, and it's simple. The simple thing is usually the right answer. Occam's razor says simplest answer is the best. So this is the simple process. And there I did it. It's 1 o'clock. Pillar to post. I don't think we stopped one time today, JM. No ums, no ers, no ahs. It was just, we talked about what was on the slides. We stuck to the program. I'm really impressed, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there for a whole hour. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get online today because I'm traveling, but it made all the difference to me to be here. And just talking about it makes me want to do it more and be more adherent to it. So I thank you for letting me be a part of your day for an hour. That's a lot. 1/24 of your day. Well, you know what, JM? There is a kind of spiritual way to say goodbye. High in the Himalayas, the yogis who sit in caves, and they chant mantra there, by the way. I've seen them. They have beads and they chant on them all day long. When they come out into the sunlight, sometimes they see fellow yogis and they get really excited because they're colleagues, basically. And so the way they greet each other and the way they say goodbye is the same way. They say this phrase, Hari Bol. Hari means one who takes away all your obstacles, and Bol means chant. So they say Hari Bol. You want to try it before we go?
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Hari Bol.
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for joining, David. I'll look forward to meeting you sometime. Take
Same
care,
here.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.